with Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker. Today I have with me Toby Lucich, co-founder and managing partner of Return Leverage. Toby, thanks for making time for me today. Tell us a bit about your company and what you're responsible for in your role.
Really good. Hey, thanks, Andrew. It's good to be here with you today. I am the co-founder and managing partner at Return Leverage. And what we do is work with clients who are leading transformational projects. Cases where the intention is really to drive and ensure adoption of major change initiatives. So we pride ourselves on our work at the intersection of project management and communications. Most of my work with clients is helping to design and then help execute those major transitions.
So a critical step in customer success is driving adoption both at onboarding and ongoing to ensure that the customer is getting both the initial value realization, but also that sustainable value. That doesn't just come from button click training followed by a cadence of just checking in emails. It's an exercise in change management. That's what you guys do. Do you agree?
I think you're right, Andrew. Historically, software was one big purchase and deployment, and then you'd get random CRM spam, right? And then requests for maintenance fees and upsell costs or upsell transactions, right? That conversation. Today, it's really about a relationship. And when we start to talk about relationships, that's a different level of investment. It's not just enough to get the software working, but we need to have people using it. And that's where change management really comes in. What we're really looking to do is shift the adoption curve on this so that if people understand how and why the software does what it does and how it fits their business, then they're going to start realizing value quite a bit faster. And that's good for the software vendor, and it's really great for the customer.
What do you mean by the adoption curve?
In this slide, if we take a look at it, we see that running up to that actual date of implementation, there's a little bit of energy. And in the best of cases, what we're doing is we're being clear with the client as well as their stakeholders about what this change is going to look like. Now, at the point of cutover, when we turn it on and start to really conduct business, everybody's using it really for the first time in the wild at that organization. They're going to be nervous about it. There's going to be missteps. We're going to bump into questions that we didn't have during training. And so our chief goal is really to build some of that proficiency before they have to use it in front of customers and start to bring them up that curve faster. So if we did nothing and left everything status quo, then everybody moves at the same cadence that they have historically. But when we introduce big changes, people are thrown into this novice state of mind where they're not experts, not the same way that they were yesterday. And so that little bit of learning curve, call it nervousness or call it acclimation, it takes some time to come up that curve. Our goal is really to drive to a place where they find the new technology useful and usable, and that we're moving up this utilization scale, right? The better the utilization they get out of a new platform or new process change, the better it is for all the stakeholders involved. And that's where change management becomes such a really valuable skill set.
Now, I know you guys use tools like the communications pyramid and the what's in it for me, stakeholder assessments. So what kind of importance does that leader, the individual, whether it's the executive stakeholder, whether it's whoever holds the purse strings, what role does that person play in the change management activity?
Yeah. Well, in most cases, it's the executive sponsor that's signed on and committed to delivering this investment value, right? And so whether they've explicitly recognized it or not, they've signed up for that bogey. And so it means either greater production or reduced overhead costs. And so a number of the tools that we share in the training session too are really about improving the quality and the planning that goes into the implementation. And so if we were to look at the communications pyramid, then what we see is a hierarchy of messaging that we lay out well in advance of starting to talk with the organization about it. As an executive sponsor, that most critical activity is to provide a clear sense of vision and some assurance that the organization's moving in a direction that makes sense and that it's well thought out. And so when we use these tools as part of our planning exercise, what it means is that all the organizational stakeholders have a confidence that the direction we're heading is going to make sense and that we're going to get there successfully. Yeah, projects are really faith-laden exercises, right? We have to believe that those in the know understand where we're going, and they've surrounded themselves with the project team to get us there. And so a number of these tools are really designed to help leaders and their core teams make sure that they get exactly where they want to go.
That's at the core of customer success, helping the customer reach their definition of success. And that's why I have always been a huge fan of change management, not as as we discuss button click training to drive adoption, because it's about helping everybody in that pyramid, everybody that's got a stake in it, to achieve their definition of success, which hopefully rolls up to the executive stakeholders' definition of success.
Yeah. Back in that Homer Simpson world where all you had to do was click one button really effectively and on a regular schedule, button click training was fine,
Yeah.
right? And Tippy Birds also did a fantastic job of covering the coffee break. But today we're solving a lot more complex problems, and I'm sure that so many of your clients, so many of the folks using Success Hacker, are really working to help their client organizations understand not just how to get the minimum value, but also how they can really exploit that investment and do so much more than they thought they could before. That's where we start to get into more of that use case based training and really starting to think about how we drive real proficiency in solutions. And so the better a job a customer success team does at understanding and communicating that, the more successful their clients will be.
Toby, it's more than just the training and change management, though. You want to have tools to apply that training as a customer success manager to your particular customer set of customers. So one of the things that we also recommend is developing a change management framework that leverages a number of the tools, whatever makes the most sense for your particular solution, and create your own kind of change management methodology that you can then apply to your customers.
Absolutely. I think that you know, just like cooking is part science and part art, you at least need to start with some instructions. You need to understand what the foundation looks like. And so if we take a look at this core framework, what you'll see is that we end up introducing a number of those most foundational tools. And those are the things that give us a scaffolding to hang new thoughts on. Now, every organization can look at the same core set of tools, but then they need to be making some very specific and judicious choices about how much is enough for small clients, how sophisticated do we want to be as part of our implementation program, and what is the right size that fits that kind of cultural bias that so many of our clients may have, right? We want it to reflect very much our culture and our values, but also be something that's accessible for our clients. And so when we start with a good framework, what it does is it offers us several avenues for driving conversations forward, but we can certainly peel back key components. And I think, like anything that we do a couple times over, we start to find a natural rhythm. We find some of our preferences. Maybe it's a stronger upfront conversation to get clarity around why this change is so critical and non-negotiable. Other folks find that what it is that they're going to say in front of large groups as they're rolling it out, even before we get to training, but really about that purpose and the future outcomes are super important. And so that's part of this what's changing conversation that takes place still in the first third of a project, but gives us some really powerful speaking points to why it makes sense to go through the pain and suffering of big changes. So a framework kind of guides us. And to your point, Andrew, it's a really great place to start a conversation because we can decide how deep and wide we want to go.
That sounds like a lot. And that's ideal maybe for my enterprise customers and my mid-market, but can we use change management methods and tools with low touch or no touch customers? If I develop a framework, can I automate this thing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that, understanding what the pain points are of that low touch, no touch customer base is really where the conversation starts. Your sales and marketing teams are thinking about this every day and they're iterating on that. And so the same way that we've already identified those pain points that cause potential customers to find us, we can build on that and carry it forward. A number of these templates are simple enough for a client to fill out themselves. And actually, so much of the data they would capture feeds very logically into your CRM and upsell cycle. A lot of this conversation about who needs to be involved or engaged and what's changing and what's not changing and what it is that they're ultimately trying to do in terms of success, that's all really powerful information for an organization, and it can be automated even in that low touch environment.
So is change management a nice to have, or is it a core competency?
I'm sure it depends on who you ask, Andrew, and clearly I have a bias, but when I think about core competencies, what I'm really interested in is not something that's going to change as my platform or as the environment shifts. It's something that has to be right at the heart of what makes somebody exceptional. And change management is really about leading with empathy. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of others. And so I absolutely see it as a core competency for folks in the CSM space. We're asking for them to be very engaged, not just rip and replace, right? Not just wham, bam, and moving on to the next engagement, but trying to build longitudinal relationships. And to do that, it means that we have to imagine the challenges of somebody experiencing our solution for the very first time. And so I think that folks that really invest in understanding change management and building some mastery around it, they're there to support clients in a very different way. And that creates lifelong relationships. So I guess if that matters, then yeah, core competency in my book.
Yeah, I think it matters.
All right.
Toby, love it. Love everything you have to say about change management. Been waxing poetic about it for years, and love your perspective and your knowledge and experience in the discipline. And I very much appreciate you spending some time with me today.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for making time for this conversation, and I'm excited to continue to work with you guys, and we'll see what we can do for folks.